Welcome to Math Class with Mr. Smith. In this video, we are going to be talking about place value and their relationships amongst the positions. So let's go ahead and let's dive right into it. In place value, the students have to understand the value of a digit within the respective place value. They also have to know the relationships between place values to the left and right of our given place value. And they need to be able to understand how to write a number that is 10 times more than the given number or 1/10 the value of. This all sounds a little confusing, and I do understand that. So let's go ahead and see what it is exactly we're talking about. So, as you see here, I've got a place value chart here. So what we want to do is let's go ahead and write the value of the digit in the boxes below. So let's start with the ones. I put one. By the way, I put ones in every single one, so it makes it easier for us to understand. So, a 1 in the ones place value simply has a value of 1. A 1 in the tens would have a value of 10. A 1 in the hundreds would have a value of 100. And in the thousands, a 1 in the 1000s should have a value of 1,000, and this should say 1,000s. A 1 in the 10,000s would have an overall value of 10,000. A 1 in the 100,000s would have a value of 100,000. A 1 in the millions place would have a value of 1 million. A 1 in the 10 millions would have a value of 10 million. And a 1 in the 100 millions place would have a value of 100 million. Basically, that's how it works. If they were to ask you what is in a question, what is the value of the digit 1, and if it was and the digit and this is the only one there, the answer would be it has a value of 1 million. So that's how that works, finding the value of a digit. Now, the reason why I have these arrows here is for a specific thing. When you jump place values from 1 to 10, 10 to hundreds, and so on, there's a unique relationship. Each place value seems to gain a 0 at the end of the number as you increase the place value position. In order to get that 0, it has to increase by 10 times over. So when you're going to the right, the position increases 10 times more than the previous position. So what I mean by that is the tens is 10 times more than the ones. The hundreds is 10 times more. Oh, my hand was blurring it, so sorry. So starting that again, the tens is 10 times more than the ones. The hundreds is 10 times more than the tens. The thousands is 10 times more than the hundreds, and so on. And if that's hard to think about it. 1 times 10 gives me 10. 10 times 10 gives me 100. 100 times 10 gives me 1,000. And that works all the way across. Going backwards, it reduces by 1/10 the value of. Because when you go backwards, each number seems to lose a 0. And my hand just blocked it again, so I'm sorry. My hand was the star of the show in that moment. You lose a 0 from going here to here, you lose another 0 going from here to here, and so on. If I can say this, 10 million is 1/10 of 100 million. A million is 1/10 of 10 million. 100,000 is 1/10 of a million, and so on. That sounds a little confusing, so I'm going to make this very simple. If I have a 100 flat, let's say I had like in base 10 blocks, a 100 flat, that means it is made up of 10 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It takes, and I'm sorry, I mean move that away. It takes 10 tens to make a 100. So 100 is 10 times more than a 10. But a 10, if I just took one of these 10s and circled it, I could say that this 10 is one of 10 tens needed to make a 100. So 10 is 1/10 the value of 100. So when you go backwards, it is 1/10 the value of. So like I said, 10,000 is 1/10 the value of the 100,000s, but the 100,000s is 10 times more than the 10,000s. So let's look at a couple of statements which they use this here, and I can tell you right now, they did look very confusing, but I'm going to show you something really interesting. Let's look at the following statements. The 1 in the hundreds place is 10 times more than the 1 in the tens place. True or false? And I should have put a true or false here, so let me just correct that real quick. There we go. Now, going back to that original statement, the 1 in the hundreds place is 10 times more than the 1 in the tens place. So let's take a look. We already know the answer because I was saying it earlier, but let's try something here. If you saw this statement, you're probably wondering, what does that even mean? So we're going to change something here. But before we do that, let's take a look at this one. The 1 in the 100,000s place is 1/10 the value of the 1 in the millions place. That sounds very confusing too. And I haven't put there. This can be a bit confusing, so let's rewrite this quote-unquote fancy talk. So what I've shown your children is in these true-false statements, if we see the phrases 10 times more than, replace this with greater than. If we see 1/10 the value of, change that with less than, and watch what happens. The 1 in the hundreds place is 10 times more than the 1 in the tens place. Well, let's delete this fancy talk, and let's replace it with something we're more familiar with. Greater than. So now we're going to re-say this phrase with our easier statement. The 1 in the hundreds place is greater than the 1 in the tens place. Well, the 1 in the hundreds place has a value of 100, and the 1 in the tens has a value of 10. Is 100 greater than 10? Yes, it is. So this is a true statement. Now let's look at the other one. The 1 in the 100,000s place is 1/10 the value of the 1 in the 1 millions place. Again, we see some fancy talk here. And let's change that to less than. Well, the 1 in the 100,000s place is less than the 1 in the 1 millions place. Well, is 100,000 less than a million? Yes, it is. That would also be a true statement, and that's how we change that fancy talk into something a little bit easier to understand. Now, in other questions, your children will be asked to find a number that is 10 times more or 1/10 the value of a given number. This is very, very simple. This is your given number. If you're asked to find 10 times more than that, add a 0 at the end. If you're asked to find 1/10 the value of, delete a 0. So what I mean by that is, if I have 80 here, and I want 10 times more, all I gotta do is add a 0 at the end, and I got 800. Fairly easy. If I'm looking for 80 over here, and I want 1/10 the value of, delete the 0, and now I'm left with 8. So go ahead and try the next three. I'm going to give you about 5 seconds so you can pause the video and try them on your own. And then I'm going to go over them. Alright, welcome back. Let's go ahead and see how you did. Well, in this next one we got 600. If I want 10 times more, I'm going to write 600. I'm going to add a 0. And that suddenly became 6,000. If I want 1/10 the value of, all I got to do is delete the 0. And I've got 60. Now I'm looking at 2 million. If I want 2 million, all I got to do is add a 0. So right now I've got 6 zeros there already. And I'm going to add an extra 0. And the reason why I didn't put the commas is for this reason. Now that I add the 0 first and then I put the commas. Because remember, after every 3 going from right to left, you put a comma. So 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma. Now we're at 20 million. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to put my 6 zeros after, because there's 6 zeros there. I'm going to delete one of them, and that leaves me with 5 zeros. So I'm going to rewrite those. I'm going to rewrite that 2 with the 5 zeros. And then from right to left, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, comma. I'm at 200,000. My final number, what I'm going to do, again, I have 45 million, so I'm going to write 45 with my 6 zeros. I'm going to add the 0, and then from right to left, 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma, and I've got 450 million. On the other side, delete the 0, and then I'm going to put these, it's going to be a 45 with 5 zeros, 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma, 4,500,000. And that is what we do with place value in the classroom. I will admit it can be very tricky, but if everyone follows these strategies, this will be easy to do. Parents, if you have any questions, please contact me on Class Dojo, as always, or contact me on my contact information on our school's website. Thank you and have a great rest of the evening.